Eden FM, presented by the Data Break Network. This is New Eden, an anomaly even within the Data Break Network. Ever since the dawn of aviation, mankind has looked to the skies with hopeful expectation of conquering the stars. Beyond the remnants of the shattered gate, a universe of impossible splendor lies among an endless sea of stars. These are the sounds of the cosmos, the sounds that echo through every corner of the universe. This is New Eden FM.
Happy Sunday, everyone. Welcome to New Eden FM. We have the music and news to enhance your Sunday. I'm Alondria of the Galaxy, and we are live in-game at the Tunttaras system at the Caldari Navy Logistics Support Station, where we are consulting some experts on those supply chain issues, and we're still having those since civilian logistic support just was not enough. So we are having to consult the Caldari military for assistance. Now, here in the studio with me is Rose. How you doing today, Rose?
Sunday.
All right. I think Rose is having a little mic issue there. We also have in studio with us our producer, Maestro Mackenzie. How you doing?
Yeah, greetings from the Data Break Studios, and doing pretty well. You know, just coming off of what I usually am by this time of the day, night of gigging and a follow-up day of running all of the technical support for this show, as well as bringing you your the music part of the show. Which today we're actually honoring the vibe of the 70s and 80s. I believe that's the Motown era. Correct, Alondria?
That would be correct. Motown is wonderful too. There's some good music in that genre. Uh, I'm old enough that I remember that stuff.
The only reason why I really know it is because it was huge for my, the culture of what I grew up around. My parents were all big Motown fans, and so were my aunts, my grandparents. You couldn't go anywhere without hearing Motown. And in this area, believe it or not, it's still very popular. Amongst the older generation, doesn't matter the race, everyone loves to hear Motown, and of course our pop stars of the 80s like Michael Jackson and Whitney Houston, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, you doesn't matter who you are, you always appreciate good music, and that's definitely what this qualifies as, is good, solid music. I remember Boys to Men being played at our prom, so that's Motown too.
Yeah, I know. They were part of what was considered to be the next generation of Motown, and they made some amazing hits. I think that one of the more popular ones that still be played today, especially at wedding ceremonies, is really popular for us to play on bended knee. So, I mean,
Yeah.
even now their legacy is holding up quite nicely, and I mean, I'm not gonna hold my breath for a return of Boys to Men, much like how we got with the Backstreet Boys, but I think it would be kind of nice if we did get that, right?
Oh, that would really be nice.
Agreed. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh. Well, I tell you what, we got some interesting things to talk about today. Of course, we got some news and happening in New Eden, and of course, the war is still going. It has changed forms, but it is still going on, and we'll be telling you all about that. December. So, have completed 6 months of warfare and are marching right into month 7. So, pretty much. So,
It's like this
yeah.
is longer than most wars take place in EVE Online, just so you know.
Yeah, it's getting to the point that a lot of people have just accepted this as the new normal. But before we tell you all about that, what do you have for us here, Mackenzie?
Yeah, so in the mix right now, we have one of the Temptations.
This is your weekly update on all things Eve Echoes and Eve Online. New Eden News.
Welcome back for New Eden News. All right. Well, we did have a patch this week. It was pretty light on there. They did say that we are getting the Inscription of the Galaxy Conquest leaderboard that's going to be announced at 0800 UTC plus 0 on May 31st. So they'll be announcing the leaderboard on that. And of course, they optimize the market as usual, and they also optimize the ship movement logic and remove the restriction on placing capital ships in cargo holds. Now, I find very interesting. I did not realize that you could not put a capital ship in a cargo hold. I don't even know why you would want to put a capital ship in your cargo hold, but you can now do that.
I mean, normally people put other things in the capital ship and not vice versa. That sounds like a nightmare of a loss if your hauler gets blown up.
I know. That's what I was just about to say. I'm looking for whenever the first time we get a capital ship in there, and if you get a capital ship drop, I want to hear about it. Yeah, that would be really nice if you kill a freighter or something like that, and it drops I don't know, a Naglifar or something. That would just be absolutely amazing.
I mean, I think last week the Hippos actually killed an SHH jump freighter that had a nightmare in it. So amongst other things, it was somewhere around a 600 billion is kill now. It was pretty crazy, but yeah.
Ouch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, technically, they lost more in that than the worth of a current like dreadnought or something, right? Because 600 and something billion ISK, it was substantial.
Yeah, that is fairly substantial, and I think if you're the pilot and you run into something like that, it makes you question your life and whether or not you're going to log in again, because that's one of those real gut punches that just makes people rage.
It can be talked about during the State of the War segment. I think it probably belongs there, but it was a guy who was running a hauling service. Like that's what he was doing. he got caught. So.
Oh my!
Yeah,
well,
it was not good.
Yeah. Now they did give us some bug fixes, and looking at the list, it looks like there were a decent amount that they needed to fix here. Now apparently the Fiend and the Adrestia had incorrect high slot attributes, so that has been corrected. They fixed it to where They fixed an issue where Rex did not drop after destroying a Capsuleer outpost, so those will drop Rex now. They fixed an issue where the damage value shown on the weapon tips was somewhat lower than the actual damage values, so that's important for figuring out what your ship is able to do, so they did correct that. They fixed an issue where freighters were unable to enter Capsuleer outposts, and they fixed an issue where fuel had a chance to vanish on its own. That is a mysterious little bug right there.
Fuel just vanishing on its own.
Yeah,
how do you even come up with something like that? Like, how does that happen? It just poofed.
Just poof. I don't know what caused that bug, but apparently they have corrected it, they said. Now, they fixed an issue where the Cyan-C carrier shield effect appeared on the wrong location. And that was probably pretty freaky for the people who saw that. They fixed an issue where some capital ship NPCs had excessively high damage. If you've suffered any losses from this issue, you may apply for review and compensation through our customer service. So they put the NPCs and capital ship anoms on steroids, I guess, and it didn't work out too good. So
well, Junie did
detoxing
say something about that 2 days ago in the Sound of Us. Like, all of her buy orders went through because NetEase gave loyal customers.
With the first question. Right, it says, hello. Have you considered adding the encounter refresh timer to the shortcut icon like the industry skills and planetary resource shortcuts? This could save a lot of players extra time or from setting their own timers. Okay, their answer was, hey there. This is an excellent suggestion, and it's definitely something we'd like to implement. We're always looking for ways to improve the player experience. Your suggestion is very helpful. It's another very chipper response. I like these chipper responses.
It seems to be the norm these days.
Well, it's better than some of the responses we got earlier in the game. All right. Let's see here. Next question. With the introduction of intelligent nanocores and AI features, upgrading purple nanocores into gold comes with the restriction to repackage them and convert them into different ship nanocore. This also includes the exclusive special nanocores, Cyber X / Neo Rain / Sleeper. Now that there are new ships and constant rebalancing of stats of ships, this gives the nanocores with real money deep regret when they convert them into golden nanocores. Is there any plans to allow repacking of these nanocores and allow them to change it into a different ship nanocores? That was a long question. Let's see what they said. Thank you for your suggestion. We have heard from many pilots who share the concern with you. We are expanding the range of nanocores that can be exchanged. However, as this process involves many entries, we are taking gradual steps and trying to make sure that any changes we make are carefully considered. So I guess the answer is not right now, but maybe later.
Something like
We'll
that,
see.
yeah.
All right. Next question says, we are grateful for the Advanced Cruisers release. And my question is, when will NetEase release the new advanced ships for the frigates and destroyer class? And also, do you have plans to rework destroyers, or why not add faction destroyers and faction battlecruiser? Might be a new thing, but these will be a big game changer. Okay. They say, thank you for your inquiry. While we don't have any plans to rework destroyers at this time, we do have plans to release advanced frigates and destroyers. We appreciate your feedback, and we hope you continue to enjoy playing Evacos.
Wait, I'm sorry, please
that
repeat.
was a
Come
semi.
again?
Well, they apparently they do not plan to rework destroyers, but they do have plans to release advanced frigates and destroyers.
But
They didn't say when though.
okay, but wouldn't that just... That sounds like... It almost... But if they don't address the balance issue with the current ones, what are the new ones going to look like?
I know, just as
Okay.
broken.
Okay, well, it is what it is, right? Okay.
It is what it is. I imagine there are all these destroyed people who moved over to EE from EO, and we're hoping to capture that same kind of experience, and loved flying destroyers are going to continue to be disappointed. So,
I don't necessarily
all
think
right.
that it needs to be an exact copy of what is happening in EVE Online. I just think that they need to be viable, right? Like, you have
I know,
they have to at least be viable. That's it. But I mean, if it's if they claim that it's working out well for them, then it must be working out pretty well.
Yeah, well, I mean, in EO, destroyers are tiny little battleships. They're like miniature versions of battleships, so
Very
to
true.
speak. I mean, they have serious weapons. I mean, they're small weapons, but they get a lot of them. Just like a battleship. Whereas in EE, destroyers are more like frigates with a fat ass. I don't know how else to put it.
Yeah, but
I mean, they're
most people
bigger. They're easier to hit, and
But
they
people
don't
like
really.
a fat ass. What's wrong with being
Well,
easier to
I mean,
hit?
Yeah, I mean, I guess, but I would prefer a viable destroyer rather than one that just has a fat ass. All right, now we got one more question here. They ask, how do you calculate the insurance value for capital ships? For example, the Sciency has market estimate value of 44 to 45 billion, but an insurance value of 178 to 179 billion as a whole. Why is there such a large difference? That is a very good question. Let's see what their answer is. Thank you for reaching out. The insurance value for CNC is determined by the estimate price of the manufacturer materials, the blueprint reverse engineering materials, and the manufacturer fee. Since the material price is still not steady, we currently use the initial price set by the system. But after regular maintenance and the trading volume of materials increases, the insurance value for CNC will change. This calculation method applies to almost all tradable and manufacturable ships in the game.
I mean,
Mm, okay.
I get it, but I mean, okay. So, in theory, what that basically means is that because right now, it is cheaper if you do the material conversion into ISK and then ISK into real world dollars. It is or euros. It is cheaper to buy the ship outright than it is to build the ship in the game, technically. So I mean, so basically, the insurance cost of insuring the ship is actually higher than just buying the ship outright.
Yeah.
You may as well
Yeah,
just buy
I
a
actually
second
saw
ship.
somebody discussing.
You just buy another
Exactly.
ship. Like buy a second one, so when that one blows up, you have one in the garage.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my goodness. Okay, well, why not, right?
Yeah. But that's it for our Q&A this week. So I really did like that last question. I wish they'd given a little bit better response, though, because it seems like it really points out just how much they micromanage the economy, and that could be why it's such a mess. But yeah. Thing that is happening from NetEase and adding to our game this week, with the exception of the CNC Cup. It's a corporation class contest. They actually are having that from the May 27th to the 30th. They had registration that they did since the last show, and got that all registered and everything. There is looks like 16 corporations are participating. So we'll see what that goes on with. But I'm not sure. They're supposed to be able to win a powerful CNC carrier and more custom prizes. So we'll see what happens with that, and we'll bring you the results of that whenever those are announced.
This is your Eve Echo State of the War Report.
Welcome back to the State of War, brought to you by the Echoes.mobi Killmail bot, the best Killmail bot in all of New Eden. Alright. Now, of course, the formal war, of course, officially ended whenever Crabco dissolved and HHH, the Hungry Hippos coalition formed for a defensive pact. But all they did is actually the war has just changed forms, because as far as Razzle Dazzle is concerned, the war is still ongoing. So we still have a war, ladies and gentlemen, and assorted other genders. We do have a war still. Now, it has changed forms. Obviously, Silent, having destroyed their Sov, was a frontal war. It wasn't really possible anymore. However, plot twist, there are now multiple Silent Sovs in Declan again. You've got SHH proper and Bot 5 controlling a few Sov points there in Declan.
Jeez, how have they survived?
Well, actually, there was an additional Bot 5 Citadel that last week we had reported that Citadel had gone boom, and we had fully expected that to the one that was scheduled for that evening to go boom as well. But Silent was able to pull a rabbit out of a hat and save that Citadel. And so that Citadel continues to stand, and they have dropped 2 more. So
Wow, that's impressive.
That is impressive. So it's going to be interesting to see what the HHH group now does, because obviously they're not blue with each other. So
Wait,
attacking
hold on.
saw
The
points is this.
SHH groups aren't blue to one another?
No, the HHH. See, SHH, HHH, alphabet
Yeah.
soup.
Alphabet soup, of course. Like, wait, did I hear
Alphabet
that right?
soup.
Okay,
That
yeah.
yeah, because it's HHH, hungry hippos. That's what everybody calls them, HHH, and they call razzle
Oh,
dazzle
yeah,
RG.
of
Those are
course.
generally the abbreviations when you're talking about these coalitions.
What a
You
headache.
used to be able to say CC, Crab Coalition, but change from CC to HHH, which when you're talking about SHH and HHH, you just get all H-tied, and you're just, you know? It's alphabet soup. It
I have
really,
a
really
headache.
is. All
I
these
have a headache just
acronyms
like talking
everywhere.
about this right now.
I know, right? I know, right?
Oh, jeez. Jeez.
Yeah, and then there's a lot going on the back end as well. There's still a lot of conflict happening in the south, where capital ships are being destroyed by razzle dazzle forces. CRB in particular actually managed to score 3 dreadnoughts just yesterday. So they are still actively attacking. Now, of course, those CRB citadels that had been taken in Esoteria have now been liberated from them and are now back in control of HHH forces. But those citadels up in the north, those are definitely going to have to be addressed by HHH, because they had stated that Razzle Dazzle, and particularly Silent Obliteration, was not permitted to have Sob until they actually surrendered. And since they have not surrendered, they have boldly said the war is not over, we are winning. Because as far as they're concerned, they're so far ahead on the ISCOR, it's not even funny. I'm not entirely sure how far ahead, but it's well over 10 trillion. It might even be 12 trillion ahead by now. We're not getting the live updates on the war stats anymore because the war officially ended. Even though, generally speaking, you really need to double check with both sides that the other side is actually surrendering before you really declare war over. At least that's my opinion of it. I mean,
you can say, let's put it this way. If you wait on your enemy, especially an enemy like Silent, who is very stubborn, and I say that in a very in a very flattering way this time. If you are talking about an organization that is as stubborn as Silent, you're not expecting these people to surrender. They're never going to admit that they lost. They are never going to admit if they've done something wrong. It just will not work that way, period, right? And so if you want to return to a specific state or a way of life, if your appreciable war goals were that we want to remove all of their Sav and make sure that they can never have Sav again in NullSec until they agree to formally disband their alliance, that's your war goal. So in theory, you don't have to wait until a group says that, well, we surrender or anything like that. The war is over the moment that one side reaches its war goal. And in this case, Crabco says that they reached their war goal. It was never about the ISK. It was about removing them essentially from having any residency whatsoever in the game. So, I mean, Silent may say, well, the war isn't over, but Crabco reached their war goal before Silent reached their war goal.
True. But now Saab is being held by Silent in Declan.
Yeah, that's a problem.
That is definitely that definitely seems like that war goal has been not.
It's been challenged.
Fulfilled anymore. It's been challenged.
It's been
exactly.
challenged. It's been challenged.
It has been challenged. So it'll be very interesting in the coming days to see what HHH does about those silent sob points there in Declan. And of course, other people have been settling the north also. There are a lot of new groups that have taken Sov in places like Branch. Branches is getting to be rather crowded over there. Yeah.
I mean,
so there is some new things happening.
I mean, it wasn't going to stay isolated for that long, right? I mean, did anyone actually expect the North to basically stay desolate for an extended period of time? I mean, come on.
Well, there's an old saying, nature where...
Yep.
That's just the nature of things.
Yep.
HHH's response to it is, and we will bring it to you as soon as we know.
Definitely some interesting times.
It definitely should be. That if nothing else, there's definitely content to be had in the game now. And of course, everybody and their dog are changing their doctrines to fit the new things that have been released. Seems like a lot of people are looking at different ways to utilize these new ships and everything. So that's been very interesting to watch as well. All of the new doctrines. Anytime there's a change in the game, the spreadsheet wizards get together and start plugging numbers in and start working things out. And then of course you got the line pilot sitting there waiting with bated breath to see what we're going to be flying now. And a lot of people have answered that now. There have been new doctrines posted up in multiple locations and multiple different groups. So they are the new material is definitely being incorporated into people's strategies for things like roams and CTA content. So that's been very
It also
interesting to
produces a
watch
healthy
as well.
level of salt amongst the line pilot, who now has to figure out how they're going to fulfill the new doctrine.
It does it that. It does it that. There is always that. There is always that one person just like, no, I'm not going to do that.
Oh, it's more than just one
But-
person. It's typically organizations of people. You know what I mean? That you have, because you have to get all those people kind of in agreement to go. All right, so we need this ship, right? We need this ship to be as effective as we want to be, and you know. I admit, even when I was playing the game, it was sometimes a chore to get people to switch over to the new doctrines, especially considering that a lot of our player base is getting to a point where they don't want to swipe to pay for, you know, to pay for SP reallocations. So it can definitely be a bit, it can be a little bit frustrating, I suppose, from you know, if you're an FC and you're trying to get everyone into the shiny new doctrine, it can definitely be very frustrating to get people to comply with that because of the real world money value that's usually attached to doctrine changes. I suppose that if you have a corporation that is a little bit more on the wealthy side, they can kind of help to alleviate some of the pressure of having to pay for those, but for the most part, you know, it largely falls on the players to have to respec into these new doctrines, and it can be a little bit of a pain in the ass. Given how you know, skill points work in this game, and EVE Online, we have skill injectors, right? And people, they tend to be relatively plentiful. If you check the Jada market, you can almost always find large skill injectors. They may not be necessarily cheap, but that's an instant injection of 400,000 skill points directly into the clone that's receiving it, and usually that's a pretty good amount to start to build yourself into the doctrine that you want to you want to start using. And even then, the organizations, they don't shift the doctrines too much, because the general state of how things work over there don't really shift that much. Everyone is preparing for the Viridian patch, and there is something that is going to be called something that's dropping called Lancer Dreadnoughts. So you know, that's going to be a new chapter, you know, for that particular game. And of course, the FCs over on that side are already doing their theory crafting, trying to figure out how they can fit those, because you're talking about dreadnoughts that kind of fire a doomsday weapon, but unlike a Titan, which fires a doomsday weapon and it just blows up and does a ton of damage, these particular dreadnoughts fire something like a doomsday weapon, but it's really just putting a bunch of debuffs on their target. Something that I think would be very interesting to game dynamic if it was added into EVE Echoes, because when you get hit by that, it breaks tethering, which is something that doesn't exist in EVE Echoes, but that means that you are no longer defended by the station. It breaks your ability to dock up in a station, and it breaks your warp drive. So you cannot warp away and you cannot jump away. You have to commit for the entire 1 minute that debuff is on you. So that's that was part of the Eve Online, I think, Dev Talk or CCP TV, which was on last Thursday. It was a very interesting listen for those of you guys that are into Eve Online culture. But I think it kind of offers a little bit of retrospection in what could possibly happen should Eve Echoes continue to move along the path that it's moving. A lot of what you have in Eve Echoes are reinterpretations of what you have in Eve Online, right? So, so the fact that they are coming up with new ways to kind of add, I mean, I don't want to say that it's EWAR because it's a little different, but it's still a type of electronic warfare. Um, it's very interesting to see how that's turning, what that's turning into, and I suppose it's good stuff on the horizon for you guys. But it's negative things because you're probably going to end up having to do some respecking in order to fit these new things into your doctrine or develop new clones. Either way, it's going to be a very expensive venture for anyone who wants to get into anything new in this game. So best of fortune to you as you continue to build on these ideas, and good luck to the FCs getting all your people to get into the new doctrines, because when it comes to tanks never change, right? Guardians don't change, Logis never change, Dictors never really change, but when it comes time for your DPS, which is the heart of your fleet, that changes constantly, and it is very expensive to be a damage pilot, a battleship pilot in Eve Echoes right now in the current economic system.
It really is, and I know a lot of people are having problems because of the Plex issue. There's no Plex available on the market.
Is that
so
still an ongoing
you have to
issue?
put in that is still an ongoing issue, and according to the best Eve Echoes economic economists, that's the word I was looking for. As far as they're concerned, this is going to be an ongoing issue probably for the next several months. So we're not expecting this to change anytime soon.
I mean, it definitely sounds like an Eve Talk issue more than a state of the war, but I think that's going to be very detrimental to your working class of players who can't really afford to play the game without buying monthly subscriptions, which when I was playing, it was never a huge issue. There were some times in the early part of the game where I would grind it out and I would pay for subscriptions using Plex, and the option of being able to do that was very, very, very good. It didn't mean that I always did it, but at times when I was maybe having a short month, because let's face it, we live in a recession, at least in the United States we do. But we live in a recession, and you have those days where if you are something like an entertainer, in my case I work as a music artist, at that time I had a lot less gigs. We had just come off of COVID-19 restrictions, and so being able to pay for Plex was a big deal, and it was very beneficial. To not have to pay for those accounts when you have that option. But that was the market worked really well back then, and now I actually do feel quite terrible for our players who are kind of in a situation where this is the only way they can play the game. It's it is going to be kind of a rough one for you guys.
Of course, it also does affect the war as well, because let's face it, you get your insurance points from Plex. You buy those with Plex. So if you are short on those, you need to make sure that before you undock, your ship is insured. So you need to get some more IP, and you just go to the market, buy some Plex to change it over. That's a problem now.
Yeah, definitely, and I'm pretty sure that the PvP corporations are feeling that one. I mean, when you can give your players ISK, but you can't do a damn thing about getting them insurance points quickly enough, and if you're not bulked up on insurance points, and I mean, that's people not showing up for CTAs and stuff, which is a problem.
Because I mean, the entire concept of SRP is based around giving people ISK to buy the Plex, to buy replace the IP that they just had to use to get their ship back. it's a system that is absolutely dependent on one's ability to actually buy Plex with ISK. So I'm curious on just how many SRP programs around the galaxy are really struggling right now because they can't get their pilots their IP back.
Well, I, I mean,
Not
maybe
not in a timely manner, at least.
this
Because I
might
mean, you can still do
sound
buy orders, but
so I know that this may sound a little bit this may come across as being a little hypocritical to a small extent, but one solution to that problem might be to go back to the roots of what makes Eve, right? And that is a player-driven economy. So if you're
yeah,
having problems with insurance, why not just invest that ISK that's typically being contracted out to your players to have your alliance build ships, and when you lose a ship, just replace it with another ship. Is it more expensive? Yes, but over time, if you do it long enough, the player market will start to kind of balance out, and who knows, it may be the thing that kind of helps to save industry as well, because part of the reason industry is getting kind of a nosedive, and it's been that way for a few years, is because of the fact that there's IP coverage, right? If you don't have IP coverage,
mhm,
eliminate that from the game, and instead you can put your industry department to work rebuilding ships, which is what we do in EVE Online, right? I mean, the insurance system, unless you're flying a capital, insurance is not something that you really want to invest in for your standard ships. I mean, you've seen some of the kill mails from EVE Online. You kill something worth
yeah,
a few billion ISK, you're only going to get maybe a couple million back. It's not worth it to try to get that ship back from, what little ISK it's going to give you is almost nothing. And that's what you get back. You get back ISK, which means that you're going to take that ISK, however small sum it is, and you're going to invest it into buying a replacement ship, not spawning the same ship back in that retrospect. So if you instead take that out of the equation entirely and pretend that this insurance system doesn't work at all, which at the moment it doesn't work at all because you don't have Plex to fund it, right? Instead, take this
yeah.
and use it as an opportunity to invest in your alliance corporation industry projects. Someone loses a ship, have them just reclaim their nanocores, which is you can reclaim a nanocore independently, and and other than that, just replace the damn ship. You know what I mean? And in doing so,
Yeah.
you will start to rebuild what should have been a really good Eve economy in the first place if the insurance system had never come to birth.
Yeah, the SRP in the game before IP was actually just that. We would give out people ships whenever they died. They would give them a new hull. And I'm reminded of the EO commercial. I watch a lot of YouTube, and there's a lot of EO commercials there, where it's the guy who's talking about he's the CEO of a 5-person industry corp, and the day after a big battle, everybody's looking to reship, and that's when they get to work. An order comes in, and they start breaking it down, all these graphics and everything, and just think, I really wish Evaco's had this kind of industry, because they look at what modules are needed. They look and they assemble it all, and they deliver the finished product, the replacement ships for what they were flying to the customer. I
Right.
mean,
I
it's
mean, certain
that's
organizations
that's
did a
real
good job of
industry.
that. Certain individuals
Hmm.
did a really good job of that. Like, if I'm not mistaken, DBL would do that, especially during the No days. They were really popular for doing that kind of thing. I think that No's other industry corporation was pretty famous for doing that kind of work, and I think that Silent also had.
HTTP.
Yeah, HTTP, thank you very much. Silent also
Hmm.
had at least one or two corporations that were really good at taking it upon themselves to deliver doctrine ships that were completely fitted and fueled up and ready to go for for one standard price, and it was really good. The thing is, people in Eve Echoes have gotten really comfortable with cheap, right? The thing is,
Hmm.
to reiterate, cheap in Eve Echoes, those are not two terms that go together very well, because nothing comes cheap in Eve Echoes. Someone is going to pay the price. Either your industry is going to pay the price for what's happening, or you're going to pay the price of what that object is actually worth, which is what should happen in Eve economics anyway, right? So
Right.
and so in this case, if you ignore the fact that right now there is no Plex on the market. You need to SRP ships. This is the point to get your industry departments in your alliance or in your corporation to work, building these ships and figuring out how much you can, how much it will cost to get people back into the ships. It may be more expensive than what the value of the Plex would have been. It may be more expensive for a while, and it's going to take a bit for people to get used to paying for the full hull value of a ship, which is what they should have been paying in the first place. But I do believe that after a few months, especially about a half a year of doing things that way, if people can commit to doing it that way, they can completely just ignore the IP system in the game entirely, and then they will have retrieved that one market. And it's now turned into more of a player-based market. You've retrieved this part that was being heavily controlled by the devs, and you've taken control of it back. But it takes sacrifice, and it's going to take increased spending in order to make this happen. You're building it for the future. You're not building it for the present. Because if a situation like this happens once, and you see what this ship has done to the game, you introduce one ship into the game where people can buy the ship with real money, and anytime this happens, it is going to lead to an avalanche, a cascade of problems with the Plex market. So why not insure yourself for tomorrow by setting up a player free market completely independent of anything that the devs have put together, and run your player free market without the IP? That way, when this shit happens, you're already ready for it. You have a strong economy that's been built up over the course of months to withstand this, because it doesn't depend on Plex at all. We give our players new hulls, and the only thing that they are responsible for doing is getting IP and using that to just get their nano core back, which is nothing all the same. You can buy enough IP just to get your nano core back. It won't be that's not a problem. So you need to, what needs to happen in order to fix this, because the devs are not going to fix this, the players need to fix this. The players fix this. Exactly. The players create their own economy, and they can save themselves of ever having to go through this painstaking situation again. Because I can tell you, NetEase has made bank off of these new carriers. They are making bank off of it. People can buy a carrier for $300. They can just flat out buy one for more than the cost of what it would take in real life conversion to build this carrier. They know that because this ship was very successful, that if they release another carrier or another dreadnought or another capital ship, it can be a Titan, people are going to pay big money as long as the value of it in real life is significantly lower than the value of what it would be in game paying for it in the same light. They're going to rake in that money, and because they are going to rake in that money, we both know that they are going to look at this as, well, crashing the market is collateral damage, because this is what we can accomplish if by doing this. So you need to shield yourself now that you have experienced this situation. Now's not the time to be insane, right? Do the same thing expecting a different result than each time you do it. Now's the time to do something different. Establish a player-based economy that is dependent upon you, your industry department, your group. Set this up in your corporation. If your alliance is not on board for doing it, set up in your corporation, and the money is going to circulate. It's going to come around full circle, because people are going to, even if you're insuring your pilots out of your own corporation funds, it's going to come full circle eventually. It may take raising taxes, it may take doing something else to get this set up, but what are you securing for yourself for the future? If you're going to play this game, you know that these things are prevalent to happen. You know that the stock market can crash at any point. So you set up an account offshores, or you basically make a lunchbox account. What the older people used to do. You don't want the government to find your money, you put it in a goddamn lunchbox and you hide it under your bed in cash, right? So I think that this is the time for people that are playing this game to think about doing that. If they don't, they're gonna be fucked. I'm sorry.
Yeah, because it's one of those things that every organization in the game right now that runs SRP has got to be looking at. They've got to be looking at the fact that their players cannot get the Plex to get the IP to refill their their amount for their to continue to recycle ships through it through the insurance system. It's they broke it whenever they released these carriers. They doubled the value of Plex, but they have a cap on it so that people can't actually sell it for what it's worth now, and so that's what's created this problem. So until that equalizes,
I'm actually shocked.
we're not going to see Plex on the market. That's why the economists say that it's going to be months until this works itself out, and the price of Plex is allowed to rise to where people actually want to sell it.
Well, I mean, yes, and I think that it's. I'm actually very surprised that when they were doing all their market balancing, that they didn't take the cap limit or at least raise the cap limit. Not, if they weren't going to remove it, they needed to at least raise that, because at this point, the game is literally slowly in this in a. This is not a simple recession where where people are having to buy stuff, and we all have to buy stuff, and we have to continue to live. We can't afford to move on to this or move on to that. You would think that at this stage where things are, this kind of situation, you would want to address this for now, right? Like, this is a level red situation when you have when you created a situation where your players cannot afford to play the game free to play if they want to raise the money for it or save the money for it or whatever. That's a red alert situation.
It really is.
I'm surprised that when they did the market updates, they didn't also raise the amount of raise the price of how much you can sell Plex for. It just, that was the easiest fix for this problem. It's the easiest fix for this problem.
It really is, but they don't seem to be willing to do that. So, like you said, the players of this game have to come together and find the solution, because NetEase is not going to present us with a solution. So, it's going to be very interesting to see how the different SRP managers in the Galaxy handle this. So, if your SRP program has found a solution to this, holler at us. We'd like to hear what your solution was. Maybe share with the rest of the Galaxy. I don't know that would necessarily be an OPSEC thing that couldn't be shared, but we all want to be able to play this game, and let's face it, if you know how to SRP your ships, but the enemy doesn't, do you think you're going to have anybody to shoot? Probably not. So you want your enemy to be able to IP, right? You want them to be able to SRP their ships, because that's what keeps the cycle of PvP going. The ability to put ships on the grid. That's the important thing. And if you can't do that, you got no opponent.
I think that you guys, it's just, there's only really one solution. It's not going to be presented to you in the game. Just get out there and start building ship hulls. That's my advice.
Yeah.
Most of you are in part of corporations that have rorquals and have access to NDS and things like that, and just start building hulls, start building SRP hulls, and figure out how you're going to take care of your own members, and because this is going to be really rough. And actually, looking at the Sound of Us, and Crazy Canadian made the statement, 33 days until my Omega runs out and I can't even place a Plex buy order. Yeah, I know everyone is feeling that right now. That's the whole server.
I have tried many times to place a Plex buy order. I have not yet been able to place a single buy order. Every single time I have tried, it tells me that there are too many orders and to try again later. I tried again later. I just wonder how much later I'm supposed to try. I don't know how I'm supposed to wedge myself in there into that queue of getting actual Plex. I haven't been able to break in, and it's a problem that I've noticed a lot of people have been saying. So, some of the Plex orders I'm willing to bet are people who are just trying to stock up on Plex and hold it so that they can sell it and make money on it as it continues to go up in value. So you've got those people who are Plex investors who are still, if they can get a buy order in, they'll put in a buy order, knowing full well that the Plex is only going up. The Plex is not going to go down. A Plex investment is a sound investment from an investment standpoint. If you have Plex, you know that it every time you go to sleep and wake up, it's worth more.
Especially right now. And I mean,
Especially right now.
to be honest, it kind of boggles my mind that NetEase hasn't actually taken that cap limit off, because if people knew that they could sell the Plex and make a greater profit, there would be more people buying Plex to sell, like specifically to sell it to make a profit, which basically means that they make more money. I don't get it.
Exactly. Yeah, I don't get it either. But it's one of those things. But I think that that's going to pretty much cover it for our war segment. I think we're really almost in our Eve Talk segment. But let's get ourselves a segue into our Eve Talk segment. We'll go ahead and we'll really delve deep into exactly what all this means, the ins and outs.
Yeah, absolutely.
Your turn. Your music, your voice, and your weekly update on all things Eve. This is Eve Talk on New Eden FM.
Welcome back for Eve Talk. All right, well, I think the biggest thing on everybody's mind right now is this Plex issue that we were just discussing in reference to SRP, but really, this Plex issue is affecting everything in the game, from people's ability to Omega their accounts to be able to do just about anything. If you wanted to be able to buy some Plex to do one of those keys, even you can't do that now. It just has completely and totally affected everything. And I know a lot of people are going to be what I like to call riding the alpha, where you're trying to get through. And a lot of times people will do it between paychecks or something like that because their pay periods didn't quite match up or something like that. You have to ride between subscriptions, so to speak. It's a well-known concept in most games, and in this game, you become an alpha clone. Now, of course, there are ways to try and preserve as much of your advancement as possible, even though you're like, I'm an alpha, I can't do anything. There's nothing for me. I can't do anything. That I understand that attitude. I really do, because alpha play is not very good at this game. But if you're planning on re-omegaing, if you're planning on continuing to play, and you just need to get through this period where you can't Plex your account, you can't get Omega right now, and you just have to try and find a way to ride through. You know, there is some options available to you. Now, obviously, one of the most important things in this game, SP. If you don't have SP to put into your skills, you're not going to get those skills. But obviously, you cannot research advanced and expert skills as an alpha. So you're like, that SP is just going to go to waste. Not necessarily. Now, what you can do in this instance, if you are having to ride alpha and you want to continue to be gaining some SP at least, what you do is you go in. If you're like a PvP player, you probably don't have industry skills. Or if you're an industry player, you probably don't have, a lot of the weapon skills things. You want to find the basic skills that you don't have. You just unlock them and start researching them. Now, as an alpha, you can only put in 7 days or put in 24 hours there. So you want to go ahead and have the SP to go ahead and buy up the 1 through 4 levels. Otherwise, you're going to have to keep a real eye on it, and because you're only going to be able to get into the 4th level of it, and the queue is going to be full. So then you'll have to go back and put the level 5 in there. But if you go ahead, if you have a little SP sitting there, that's fine. Use it. It's usually about 68, 69,000, sometimes a little more depending on the skill, to get that 1 through 4 on that. And then what you do is you get that 5th one into your queue. You'd let it ride through that. And then after it ends, you just go ahead and you can get up to 100,000 SP as an alpha without anything in your queue. So you can go ahead and you can just know how long it's going to take. Know that you're going to need that SP to get that started again. So just let it go ahead and build up. Because you can actually, that 100,000 is going to be more SP building up than if you were to put 1 through 4 in a queue. Okay? So you just let that build up, and then whenever you got it built up to almost 100K, you go ahead and you repeat that thing. And then whenever you're able to Omega your account, You use your Lazarus units to pull those skills out and put them into your advanced and expert skills that you would have been working on had you had Omega. So that allows you to at least keep 30 SP a minute going on your count, or more if you have chips, because those chips are still active. If you are a alpha clone who had 3 chips, you're going to be getting 45 SP a minute still, because those chips, they don't turn off whenever you go alpha. So there's at least that way that you can try and ride the Omega a little bit and still kind of progress your account towards your goals.
And that's good advice. I think that for those people that want to, they still have a future. They still look at this as being they want to build a future in this game. It is something that they're going to have to do. If you're free to play, if you are one of those people that chooses not to swipe your credit cards, it's fine. It's well understood. No one is holding it against you. What Landria says is correct. You're gonna have to find a way to kind of make this a little bit more cushy for yourself. Uh, and Corp Omega, yes, it will still work. That is something that I think that last week, Durkader did point that out. So if you have a corporation and you have corp members that are willing to swipe to get Corp Omega, you can get an Omega clone that way. I think the thing
Yeah.
to note is that to my knowledge or my memory, and Alandria, correct me if I'm wrong, but the Corp Omega clones are basic Omega, so
Yeah.
you're not going to get the maximum effect from having the dual Omega clones. Um, but at least you'll still have access to your advanced skills, which I think is it's still
Yeah.
better. It's better than not having Omega at all because now
Oh,
you can still
definitely.
do your stuff. So, for those of you that guys that are part of corporations that are very charitable to their members, that's something for you to look into.
Yeah.
And probably your only real option if you want to fly Omega at this point.
Yeah. But yeah, if you have to ride a alpha, there are those things that you can do. If you can talk to your corp, that is another solution that you can use. Uh, the 170 plex for a corp clone comes out of the wallet of the person who activates that clone now. So your corp leadership would actually have to have the plex on them in order to do it. There are corps out there who they have people who I have 10,000 plex just sitting here that I it's my investment thing. They may dip into their investment pool to help out their members. You never know. You never know until you ask, and there's never any harm in asking.
And a lot of CEOs, especially the really talented ones like Smooth, are pretty good when it comes to general economy and things like that, and they do a good job of stockpiling resources that are going to be used later on when the corporation members are in desperate need of this or that. Even before this whole thing happened, I do know that the Self-Destruction Crime Syndicate um, was giving people Omega, like Corp Omega, if necessary. Most of us, we took care of ourselves, but if you really needed a Corp Omega clone, it was available to the people that needed it. When we first opened our doors, I think we had like 3 or 4 of them that was just like sitting there available to us for the members that needed that in order to increase their or better their play experience. That being said, yeah, there are corporations that are doing it. And I think it's great. I think at this point, it's so much more important to have people that are doing that because it's it's not the greatest situation in the world. I can say that much. It really is. It's a tough situation, but you can make it through it. Not it's just not a fun one.
Yeah, yeah, but that's the thing about this a game like Eve. It is very very community oriented. I mean, you get in with a group of pilots that you're flying with day in and day out. They become like a family, and if it's a good group, and the leadership of a group like that, they really care about whether or not their players are having fun and enjoying themselves and having a good play experience. That there are games where it's just more meat for the grinder, so to speak. But in a game like Eve, community is really a central focus of the gameplay experience. I mean, sure, you can be corpless, fly around high sec, do some missions, stuff like that, but you're not going to experience everything the game has to offer. And not just because you don't have access to know, because there are things that you really need to have cooperative play in order to experience. And this is very much a cooperative game.
Yeah,
And so
100.
sometimes it's necessary to cooperate to get over some problem or change in the game, because the devs, they don't necessarily think 5 steps in advance like an E player does. We see ramifications of things that they do. They don't even have a clue that that's what's going to happen, and then we point to it and say, "Ha, see, we told you, but we prepared." You know, and we do that because we are a community.
Yeah, very true.
So
I think
if you're struggling in this, you need to check with your community. Don't feel like you're alone and isolated, because unless you're corpless in this game, you're not really isolated. You've got people around you. Talk to them. I know a
I'll
lot of
be
people don't like asking for
honest with
handouts
you.
and stuff either, but
I'll be totally honest with you. We had a few people that joined the corporation and then eventually left and said, "I want to fly solo for a while." We never saw them again, like in the game at all. That's how well flying solo works in Eve.
yeah, it really doesn't. It's just one of those things that you've really got to have a good group to support you, and you support them. You support each other. Because one day you need help with something, the next day somebody else needs help with something that you can help with, and it goes full circle.
Well, I mean, aside from the the looming problem with Plex, which I'm still a little bit shocked that NetEase hasn't stepped in and raised the limit, because raising the you know raising that is beneficial for everyone. It would be beneficial to them. They'd sell more Plex at the moment because the market is at an all-time high. Be great for the player base. It'll help to save a lot of these accounts that are going to turn alpha. It just really is shocking that that they haven't considered doing that. I thought that was going to be the first switch they hit on last week, and yet it wasn't. Like, oh, really? Okay.
Right. But they have been putting a lot of new content in the game, as far as things to do with the new uh, dormant realm. They've added new ships and things like that. But if people can't Omega their accounts, there's going to be fewer people to actually enjoy that content with. So it's an issue that I really hope that NetEase wakes up to and addresses, because it is badly in need of being addressed.
They get in on that. I don't know what to
And
It's to see how the CSM is going. I'm gonna assume not good, since a lot of these changes, these are really new things that are, I guess, rolling down at this point. So I'm going to just guess that the CSM isn't really having the effects that they were hoping it would.
Well, they only just this last week reached out to NetEase to introduce themselves and explain the purpose of the CSM and everything like that. As far as I know, they are still waiting for a reply from NetEase, because their last CSM update on the 26th is what stated that. So they are still working and proceeding forward, but as of yet, we haven't seen any results from it. But it's still early in their process, so Let's see what NetEase actually says in response to them. Give NetEase a little time to respond there.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm pretty sure they don't work on the weekends, just like a lot of us don't work on the weekends, right?
That's probably true, and of course, this is Memorial Day weekend here in the United States, so
Yeah,
that
but
is a holiday weekend as well.
that's a holiday weekend in the U.S. I don't think that Memorial Day is observed in the other countries. Someone please correct me
Yeah,
if I'm wrong,
just
but I'm reasonably sure
I,
it's a U.S. holiday.
I think it's a U.S. holiday, so it's just a holiday weekend for us here in the states. So, which of course, it being Memorial Day, we do want to give a shout out to all of our soldiers in uniform and veterans who have served in uniform, and thank them for their service, because
Absolutely.
it is absolutely necessary for any country to have an armed forces to defend it and protect its citizenry from bad actors in the world. So
I'm
we're very thankful for
absolutely
those
thankful and
ladies
loving
and gentlemen.
towards our Navy and our Marines. That's my my part of it. But I still show love to our Army and of course our Air Force, because those men and women, they do some truly amazing things on a daily basis, I might add.
Oh yes, definitely, definitely, and they these ladies and gentlemen, they spend time away from their families and things like that, deployed in places nobody would really willingly want to go and get shot at while doing it. So, my gosh, we have to be thankful for them, because that's the kind of job that has to be done, and you got to respect the people who do it. You know. Don't forget, if you happen to come across anybody from Yale, throw a cat pun in local. They really enjoy that.
Jeez. I really want to pretend like you're joking right now.
I'm. It's really a thing in the game. It really is.
Ah, man.
I know, right?
Shh. All right, love, hugs, and kisses, people. I'm done.